Hello there. Today we're going to be talking about logical fallacies, which are kind of like rush jobs to get an argument out so fast that you screw things up. And we're going to go over some of the more common ones. But before we do that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell other people about what's going on. I don't know, make a donation to your nearest charity, whatever makes you feel good, just share the love, because this is probably going to be the last one of these for the year. It's been a long year, I need a break. But before that, logical fallacies. Which are very similar to cognitive bias, but not quite the same. Here, let me run you through the differences. So a cognitive bias is something that you tend to pick up over a longer period of time because you see the same sort of actions being repeated. You know, it's constantly, I'm going to pick that person first for this game of rugby, or I'm going to watch this program before I watch that program. And over a period of time, you start to notice that bias appearing. Logical fallacies are completely different in that they're instant, they're like in your face. Maybe not quite so in your face, but they're done relatively quickly. And while a period of time will show you a bias from them, it's the now that we tend to see where those logical fallacies come in. And I should probably start off with a bit of a warning on this one. This is a really, really common technique for your extreme right-wing media outlets. Everything from Fox through to Counterspin, they do this on purpose to get people riled up and angry because they're essentially bad faith arguments. And because of that, they're now everywhere, which is one of the reasons why the world feels kind of shit, because they're everywhere. So just be warned, if you don't deal with this kind of thing well, if you're triggered easily by this kind of angry sort of commentary, which is going to be in here, now might be a good time just to hit that skip button and go find something nice to do. It's a beautiful day, go out, do some gardening. Let me tell you about a little experiment I ran on what is commonly called 8chan, Twitter. Here is the tweet, and it's actually pointing out a couple of really specific things in there. First of all, I hope you can follow it, because someone told me that they couldn't, and I'm a terrible writer because of it. 280 characters, there's only so much that you can do. However, it does really specifically reference a couple of things in there, and that's on purpose, to try and get a bit of a rise from these snowflakes on the right wing who get upset about everything. So that's why there is a mention of, let's just call him the German Chancellor from the 1930s, but there's also other things referenced in there as well, like the choice specifically to not get vaccinated and the outcomes to that, which people were told in advance what they were, but that still made them feel like they were segregated and taking part in apartheid. They weren't. Look it up. Fucking idiots. Anyway, let's check out how this did, whether or not a little bit of bait worked and got in some people looking at this. Oh boy. Might have got away on me a little bit more than I expected it to, but that gives us heaps of opportunities to look at the different sort of logical fallacies that come up, because there's like 15 of them, and I've got an example of almost all of them thanks to this. First up, we have an ad hominem attack, which is an attack on me personally, not on my statement or my position, like this. Then there's the straw man argument, which is basically making an attack based on a position you don't hold yourself. It's an ignorance appeal, which is basically an appeal to ignorance. You know what? It just says that on the box. It's like there's no evidence found. That's what an ignorance appeal argument is. And there's the false dilemma, offering like two choices, because you've got to pick one, when there's multiple options out there. This is really common when it comes to right-wing media. One that's really common for right-wing media is this, the slippery slope, because this could lead to that. Then there's the circular argument, which is basically, it goes nowhere because it can't, and that's why it goes nowhere, if that makes sense. And there's this, the hasty generalization, which is basically overstating everything, working on assumptions, and completely fucking it all up as you go along. Then there's the one about the dead cat that appeared in the clip just a few seconds ago. Did you pick up on that? Why were you paying attention to that and not this? Is this some kind of red herring? Well, if I am, then you are too. It's actually called the hypocrisy argument. This one's called the false cause, which is the correlation does not equal causation argument, or does it? Could do. That led to this, but it doesn't. Then there's the sunk cause argument, which is basically, I am so far in over my fucking head, the only thing I can do is keep on going and hope like hell nobody realizes I fucked this up. Then there's the appeal to authority, which is basically them telling you you've got to take their word at it. You don't need evidence. Evidence. Pfft, trust them. They know what they're talking about. Oh, and then there's equivocation, where it's not necessarily lying, but I just didn't tell you exactly what was going on. Oh, and then there's the appeal to pity, where don't you feel so dumb for having said that? Poor wee little thing. Oh, it's all right. You'll know better for next time. And finally, all aboard the bandwagon, which is pretty much what it says on the box, other than the fact it's not really a wagon and there's no bands involved, but it's everybody jumping on because they should, because everyone else is jumping on. They're all going in relatively the same direction. But there's no real wagon involved anymore. So each of those 15 logical fallacies that were just given also have examples attached to them that are taken from the original tweet. These are actual responses real people thought they should put down and share with the public in a town square environment that's generally infested with trolls these days. So you can see how these fallacies work in real time. Now the big problem here is that they are fallacies. They are failings in logic, which you don't necessarily pick up at the time that you put the word out or that you respond, because you're generally doing it quite quickly, which is what our difference is between a fallacy and a cognitive bias. So, how do you go about fixing logical fallacies like this? This is where the problem actually comes in. You see, a logical fallacy is usually designed because it is a vastly run bad faith argument to stop conversation. So the way to start conversation and to get something meaningful out of it is basically to talk, which the internet is not a very good space for. As you are well aware, you can block users you don't want to deal with, which creates your own little bubble. Keeping that conversation going, though, you end up digging in and you start causing more issues because you don't want to admit that you're wrong. The internet is not a good place for fixing these particular problems. And unfortunately, that's where we do most of our communicating these days. So the way to stop logical fallacies online is to get offline. And that's a really big ask and not going to happen anytime soon. Because no matter how often you sit there and go, well, look, you're wrong because of this and this and this, or you're right because of this and this and this and this, people just aren't going to listen because it's the internet. But at least you tried, I guess. Talk to real people. It's going to be the better way to do things going forward.